The lands between carries a strange softness when you wander through it slowly, as though the world exhales memories into the air with every drifting golden mote. Elden Ring is full of quiet, delicate details that most travelers walk past without noticing. Tiny secrets woven into cracked stone, overgrown ruins, and old magic that still clings to dust. When you move through the world without a blade raised, it becomes something ancient and gentle, shaped by moments of history that settled over centuries like fallen leaves no one ever swept away. And in that stillness, you start to notice facts buried beneath the surface, hints of stories the world whispers only if you listen long enough. The trees glow, that warm, shimmering gold, drifting like pollen, isn't entirely natural. If you stand still in certain regions, the motes fall in gentle spirals that match the timing of the Elden Beast's wing beats. It creates the impression that the tree is breathing in harmony with the cosmic being that once guarded the Elden Ring, as though some faint echo of its movement still lingers within the light itself. Some scholars believe this shimmering dust reacts subtly to a tarnished presence, drifting slower when you stand beneath heavy branches, as if recognizing the one who might one day shape the world's destiny. In the heart of Limgrave, when you linger near narrow streams, you can sometimes hear faint chimes beneath the water. The notes are soft, almost like distant singing, and they echo in patterns resembling the melody of the main theme. It's believed the water carries the resonant memory of grace itself, flowing with the same cadence as the hidden guidance that leads tarnished onward. Even before you ever see your first grace sight flicker to life, the world is already humming a promise, a quiet reminder that something watches over the wanderer long before the journey begins. If you approach certain ruins slowly enough, spectral birds perched on crumbling arches will tilt their heads as though seeing you long before you notice them. Their feathers shimmer faintly with blue and white light, carrying the same energy used by ancestral spirits in Siofra River. The connection suggests these spectral creatures may be remnants of an age before the Shattering, when the boundary between the living and ancestral spirits remained soft and unfixed. Their presence in ruins scattered across the world hints that great tragedies once took place in sites no lore book ever described. At night, when the moon drifts quietly over Liurnia, the water mirrors its glow in a way that doesn't reflect perfectly. The shimmer bends slightly, warped as though the lake remembers a different moon from long ago, perhaps, one connected to the Carian royal family or to the mysterious magic of the dark moon held by Ranni. Scholars who study reflections in Elden Ring claim that water in Liurnia is capable of capturing and retaining spectral images for longer than ordinary surfaces. Every ripple becomes a memory, every glimmer a secret, and the lake itself turns into a vast archive of forgotten lunar magic. In Stormvale Castle, if you stand in certain corridors without moving, the wind traveling through cracked stones creates low, hollow notes. These notes resonate with the same tone produced by Godric's dragon-grafted arm when he raises it during his battle. The castle remembers its lord in a way that almost feels mournful, carrying the faint hum of authority that once echoed through every hallway. Godric's grafting obsession spread deeper into the stone than anyone realized, shaping the very air patterns of the keep long after his rule spiraled into desperation. Even the pumpkins used by Pumpkinheads hold quiet secrets. The iron helms they wear were not originally designed for protection. They were prototypes of mind control suppression helmets created during early Golden Order experiments. When these attempts failed, the masks were discarded and repurposed, eventually becoming the grim cages the Pumpkinheads carry proudly. The fact that these creatures still react with strangely calm mannerisms, bowing or pausing before attacking in some locations, suggests that remnants of those early enchantments linger inside the metal. When exploring Caelid, the red dust blowing through the air doesn't fall randomly. The particles drift toward older battlefields, gathering in swirls above sunken craters where the scarlet rot once bloomed violently. These swirls occasionally pulse in gentle spirals, forming patterns similar to sigils from millennia's rot-infested wings. Caelid's air behaves more like a living memory than simple decay, reflecting the agony of a war that never fully healed. Travelers who walk through specific patches sometimes feel a faint tingling sensation, as though the rot senses living flesh passing nearby. Deep in the Weeping Peninsula, the shrines carved into cliffs align perfectly with the position of the sun during early morning. At sunrise, beams of light shine through cracks in the stone, illuminating hidden carvings that depict ancient warriors kneeling before a tree that resembles the Erd tree's earliest form. These carvings predate Marika, suggesting that other divine trees once existed long before the Golden Order shaped the world. These faint symbols show that early inhabitants worshipped light itself, long before gods claimed ownership of it. The wandering mausoleums, those gargantuan stone creatures that carry the dead, have a slow, rhythmic pulse inside their bodies. If you place your ear to the stone, you can sometimes hear a muffled heartbeat echoing from deep within, matching the rhythm of soul chimes collected from fallen demigods. The mausoleums were designed to move only when a great soul stirs within, meaning that every step they take is powered by memories of ancient battles. Their movements are not random. They wander toward places connected to the demigod whose remains they carry. The land recognizes its dead. In the early morning fog of Mistwood, the air carries faint golden threads that drift lazily between trees. These threads come from pockets of residual grace hidden deep within the roots. When wolves howl in this forest, their cries linger longer than normal, creating soft, layered echoes that weave through the golden strands. Locals believe the wolves are guardians of old grace sites, and their howls maintain a boundary that prevents certain corrupted spirits from crossing into Limgrave. Whether intentional or instinctive, their songs shape the quiet protection of the forest. In the shadow of the divine towers, the wind behaves differently. It curls upward in spiraling patterns instead of sweeping horizontally across the land. These spirals mimic the structure of rune fragments floating within the towers. It suggests that the mass of energy sealed inside each great rune bends the surrounding atmosphere. This is why birds avoid flying too close to the towers, not from fear, but because the air becomes unstable, humming with magic that distorts natural flight patterns. The Albinaurics, especially the first generation with silver legs, leave unusual footprints when walking across snow. The prints glow faintly for a moment before fading, as though the land reacts to the artificial essence used to create them. The glow lines resemble diagrams used in early artificial life experiments conducted by Raya Lucaria scholars. These traces imply that the Albinaurics were born not only from magic, but from a deep understanding of cosmic geometry, making them one of the most complex artificial creatures in all the lands between. The demi-human tribes, scattered across cliffs and caves, possess an unspoken hierarchy based on the direction the wind blows during certain hours of the day. Their shamans raise staffs toward the sky, sensing vibrations carried on the breeze. These vibrations shift as the Erd tree releases pulses of golden light throughout the day. The demi-humans treat these pulses as divine signals, organizing their gatherings around unseen patterns created by the tree's radiance. What seems chaotic to outsiders is actually a delicate ritual shaped by celestial timing. When descending into Siofra River, the glowing grass reacts to footsteps by dimming and then brightening again, almost like bioluminescent sea creatures. This effect was designed to represent ancestral spirits acknowledging the presence of the living. Some tarnished believe the grass brightens more intensely when someone carrying a shard of the Elden Ring walks nearby, as though the ground recognizes the faint echo of divinity within broken runes. Siofra's glow feels alive because it is tied to ancient souls that drift endlessly beneath the surface. Erdtree guardians stationed near the base of the tree move in perfect unison when patrolling. Their footsteps, sword movements, and shield adjustments align to the same rhythm. Scholars have discovered this rhythm matches the pulse of sap traveling through the Erdtree's roots, implying that the guardians have attuned themselves to the heartbeat of the tree. Their discipline is not simply trained, it is synchronized with the life essence of the world itself. When wandering mountaintops of the giants, snowflakes fall in swirling loops that resemble coiling runes seen in ancient murals. Some believe the snow carries fragments of forgotten incantations once used by giants during the war against the Erdtree. The snow does not melt quickly on tarnished armor because the flakes contain dormant sparks of ancestral frost magic clinging to metal for a brief moment before fading like cold breath in the wind. The eternal cities, with their starry ceilings, project constellations that do not appear in the skies above the lands between. These false stars represent potential fates that never came to pass, alternate timelines sealed away when Marika severed the ties to the greater will. The dim stars that shift slowly inside Nokron and Nokstella move according to forgotten cosmic laws, suggesting that these cities exist slightly out of sync with the world above. Travelers sometimes report experiencing faint déjà vu when walking beneath the artificial stars, as though touching upon memories of worlds that were erased. The cliffside harps near the mountaintops occasionally play soft notes when the wind rushes through them. These harps, carved from giant rib bones, resonate with ancient music believed to be fragments of giant funeral hymns. The melodies drift across snow-covered plains, echoing the grief of a civilization wiped away in flames. When certain notes align, you can almost hear what sounds like distant chanting the last song of a people swallowed by the cold. And when you rest at a site of grace, the flickering strands of golden light swirl in patterns that resemble wings. These wings drift upward gently, then fold inward before fading. The animation mirrors how the Elden Beast retracts its wings during slumber, creating the impression that every grace is a fragment of its dream, soft, quiet, and humming with the distant warmth of cosmic divinity. Each rest becomes less a pause and more a moment spent inside the dream of the thing that once shaped fate itself. Across the lands between, the air holds a strange hush, as if the world itself never fully woke up after the shattering. It carries a kind of quiet that feels older than memory, a stillness that settles into stone, into dust, into the soft glow of the Erdtrees, scattered like forgotten candles across the horizon. Beneath this calm lies a wealth of secrets that rarely show themselves unless you walk slowly, patiently, letting every ruin and every ruined god tell their stories one grain of sand at a time. Even the smallest detail in Elden Ring seems designed to whisper something deeper, something that slips past the surface unless you listen closely enough for the world to speak. When you stand on the cliffs overlooking Limgrave, the breeze carries faint chimes that don't match the music of the region. Many players have noticed a delicate echo drifting through the grass at dawn and dusk, a sound that seems to come from nowhere and yet feels intensely familiar. Some believe it comes from the spectral ruins of old churches, whose bells once marked the rhythms of a kingdom forgotten long before Queen Marika ever touched the Elden Ring. Others imagine it might be the remnants of grace itself humming through the air, shapes of melody that dissolve the moment anyone tries to focus on them. Whatever the source, it offers a sense of distant memory, like a song that once held the world together before the gods began tearing it apart. Across West Limgrave, the knights who serve Godric wear armor that bears cuts and dents too erratic to be from battle alone. The markings resemble claw scratches, as though something monstrous once raked across their ranks long before the Tarnished returned. Some theorists believe these scars were carved by the grafted monstrosities roaming the cliffs, creatures created in secret trials before Godric perfected his grotesque obsession with stitching limbs together. When the light hits the armor just right, these scratches shine faintly green, matching the tarnish seen on old weapons sealed in tombs stretching back to the reign of the Golden Lineage. It makes Godric's madness feel far less like a sudden shift and more like a twisted tradition he inherited rather than invented. The Weeping Peninsula holds strange rain patterns that fall heavier near the edges of its cliffs, almost as if the land itself grieves. Local melodies, sung by wandering nobles, mention storms that predate the shattering storms that raged when the demigods still lived in uneasy harmony. Some believe the weather patterns here echo a tragedy too ancient for records, perhaps tied to a forgotten daughter of the Golden Lineage, whose name appears scratched out in manuscripts found deep beneath Castle Morn. When the storms roll across the grasslands, you can sometimes see lightning strike in the same distant spot repeatedly, as though attempting to illuminate something buried too deeply for the world to reveal. Even the spectral steed, Torrent, carries secrets in the way its hooves barely touch the ground. The creature's steps cause no indentations, no traces in the soil, as if existing half a breath outside the physical world. It's said that Torrent's kind once served the ancient spirits that roamed the lands before the Erdtree's birth, roaming plains untouched by war or divine ambition. The faint golden trace that glimmers in Torrent's mane matches the color of grace only when the Tarnished approaches a major revelation, a subtle shift that suggests Torrent knows far more about destiny than its quiet presence lets on. It raises questions about who or what entrusted this creature to the Tarnished, and why it responds so readily to a whistle carved from bone. In Liurnia, the moonlight holds a gentle thickness, as though the sky itself sighs softly over the vast lakes. Some claim that if you stand on the broken rooftops of the Academy of Raya Lucaria during a full moon, the light bends in subtle patterns, forming faint silhouettes of scholars long since departed. These illusions differ from region to region, almost like the moon reacts to the emotional residue of whatever sits beneath it. Around the Academy, the glow flickers like candlelight, as if trying to relive lessons taught centuries before. Near the swamp, however, the moon shines with a colder intensity, illuminating patches of water that ripple unnaturally, revealing faint shapes of drowned knowledge sinking deeper into the muck. The Albinorics who wander Liurnia's marshes hum soft melodies, their voices creating chords that resonate strangely with the gentle splashing of lake water. When recorded and slowed, their humming patterns resemble old draconic chants, hinting that their artificial souls may have origins far more ancient than their forms show. The second-generation Albinorics, those with hardened silver shells, often pause before attacking as though processing emotions too complex for their bodies to express. Their tears, when they cry out in sorrow or fear, glow faintly blue, a sign that their hearts may carry fragments of moonlight magic planted by the mysterious Great Ones who still watch over Liurnia through star-filled skies. Moving deeper into the lakes, some of the drowned bell towers clang faintly underwater, their sounds rising through the surface as muted chimes. These tones are not random. They match old incantations associated with the Carian royal family. The bells ring only during certain astronomical alignments, creating the impression that the lake itself contains a spell the moon renews cyclically, a ritual so old that even the Carian descendants no longer recognize its purpose. It makes the region feel alive in ways that defy simple explanation, as though the world keeps performing its forgotten duties long after its caretakers died or vanished. Lands Between Soil holds peculiar properties that become clearer the more you travel. Every region's earth produces its own distinct sound when stepped on a faint frequency unique to its local energy. The soft crunch of Caelid's corrupted dust vibrates differently than the gentle thud of Altus Plateau's amber-touched grass. These frequencies match tonal codes associated with incantations written in ancient scripts, suggesting that the land itself carries a living memory of the magic once used to shape it. Even the Erd Tree's roots, those vast golden passages running beneath the world, emit a constant low hum that shifts pitch during major events, almost like the tree responds to the tarnished's progression in real time. In Caelid, the rot doesn't simply cling to the land it breathes with a subtle cadence, pulsing faintly in sync with the red sky. If you wait long enough near the decayed ruins, you'll notice the air thickens at regular intervals, as though the scarlet rot inhales and exhales like a living organism. This effect grows stronger near the Wailing Dunes, where lore suggests that millennia once fought battles that scorched the very essence of the land. The rot clings to remnants of this ancient conflict, as if carrying the emotional residue of defeat, grief, and determination etched permanently into the region. Even the sky seems to remember that battle, swirling with crimson clouds that never quite settle into stillness. The wandering mausoleums that roam the lands between may appear to move randomly, but some players have noticed their steps align suspiciously well with star charts visible during specific nights. Their bells ring at intervals matching the orbital patterns of the shattered stars associated with the eternal cities. This connection suggests the mausoleums are more than wandering tombs. They are cosmic instruments, still following instructions placed upon them in a time before the Erd Tree's dominance. When they kneel, their motions resemble ancient gestures of celestial worship no longer practiced by any surviving culture. The eternal cities themselves hold echoes that behave differently than typical acoustics. When you drop an item in Nokron or Nokstella, its sound doesn't scatter outward the way it does above ground. Instead, it funnels into a central point, as if the buildings themselves pull noise toward their heart. This effect grows stronger near the ruins where ancestral spirits materialize, implying that the cities might have once used vibrational sound as part of their rituals to communicate with the stars. Their lightstones still hum faintly when touched, resonating with an energy that feels lonely and unfinished, like a song interrupted mid-note and left hanging for centuries. Deep underground, the ancestral beasts seem to move in patterns too precise to be driven purely by instinct. They walk in spirals matching constellations visible only during eclipses, suggesting an ancient relationship between the underground realms and the celestial sky above. Their dances, observed during spirit convocations, align perfectly with ancient cosmic diagrams preserved in hidden chambers beneath the royal capital. It implies that the spirit realm and the sky may have once been connected directly, offering a path for souls to ascend to the stars before the Erd Tree rerouted the cycle of life and death. Lanedale's architecture holds secrets etched into its angles and shadows. The shape of each arch and corridor ways align with golden ratios tied to the Elden Ring's geometry. When sunlight falls at certain times of day, murals appear through the shadows. Murals carved so faintly into the stone that they are invisible under normal light. These murals depict events that predate the Golden Order entirely, hinting at a kingdom that existed before Marika reshaped the world. Some show figures wielding runes with unfamiliar symbols, suggesting that the Elden Ring may not have been the first metaphysical law that governed the lands between. Even the Erd Tree's leaves carry mysteries rarely noticed. When they fall toward the ground, Some leaves disintegrate mid-air with no physical cause, dissolving into dust that glows faintly before fading away. These leaves tend to vanish near regions where deathroot seeps through the soil, hinting at a metaphysical conflict between the Golden Order and a primordial force of decay older than the Erd tree itself. The ground beneath the tree remains warm even at night, but this warmth dims slightly when a major demigod falls, almost like the tree mourns in silence. In the Forbidden Lands, the wind doesn't just whistle, it whispers with a cadence resembling half-spoken words. Adventurers passing through its narrow paths often claim they hear fragments of prayer, languages they've never encountered but somehow understand emotionally. These whispers intensify near the bridges leading into the mountaintops of the giants, as if the voices grow anxious at the proximity of the fire giant's slumbering power. Some believe these winds carry remnants of an ancient war cry, frozen in the air since the time when giants battled the gods for control of primordial flame. The mountaintops themselves pulse with faint tremors, not from geological instability, but from the beat of a magical presence still burning beneath layers of snow. The fire giant's flame never truly died. It flickers occasionally from deep cracks, glowing briefly before being smothered by wind and ice. This flame, when observed at the right moment, reveals swirling runes older than Marika's lineage, patterns believed to belong to a primordial fire deity whose existence the Golden Order tried desperately to erase. Every time the flame flickers, snow melts for a fraction of a second, leaving fleeting puddles that refreeze immediately, trapping shards of ancient magic inside. Farther north, the Haligtree whispers with a sorrow that almost feels tangible. Its branches tremble even when the air is still, and the root systems beneath the city emit faint pulses of light that repeat in cyclical patterns. These pulses match the rhythms of lullabies sung by young Miquella in the rare manuscripts still preserved in hidden vaults. It suggests that Miquella's enchantments remain active despite his abduction, preserving fragments of hope and innocence within a world drowning in rot and despair. At the edges of the world, where the land breaks apart near the crumbling Fara Mazula, the sky warps into spirals that mimic gravitational distortions seen around collapsing stars. The architecture twists accordingly, forming shapes with no logical orientation, implying that the region may exist partially outside the normal flow of time. This creates a sense that Fara Mazula is not merely falling apart, but being stretched across multiple temporal layers simultaneously. Its beasts move with uncanny hesitation, their steps overlapping between past and present, as though their bodies struggle to remain in one moment for too long. In the end, the lands between feels like a dream, trying desperately to remember itself. Patches of forgotten magic, echoes of old kingdoms, remnants of cosmic rituals, and memories of gods who fractured under the weight of their own ambition. Even the smallest creature carries a sliver of that forgotten history, and every ruin hums with a faint essence of stories untold. It is a world still alive with secrets, waiting quietly beneath starlit skies for someone patient enough to listen. The lands between carry an unusual sense of déjà vu, as if the world itself remembers versions of its own past that no longer exist. And Part 3 drifts deeper into that feeling by wandering through quiet corners of Elden Ring's design, lore, and strange small truths that settle into the world like dust. When travelers explore Stormvale Castle carefully, they sometimes notice how many broken staircases lead nowhere, not because of destruction, but because the castle was built in incomplete layers, as though its architects constantly changed plans mid-construction. This mirrors an idea embedded in the Golden Order itself, the belief that structures should grow toward perfection even if the path is chaotic. The castle's odd corridors, dead ends, and half-open rooms become a symbolic map of a kingdom that was always trying to reshape itself. Even the birds perched along the ramparts behave strangely, sometimes watching the sky rather than the player, as though waiting for something they've seen before in some distant echo of time. Deep in Liurnia, the moonlight has an almost tangible weight that settles on the surface of the water, giving the impression that the lake remembers every night spent under Renala's quiet rituals. Some observers swear the reflections on the water shift subtly when you're not looking, showing faint outlines of towers that don't exist, as though the lake retains memories of the Academy's oldest days. The scholars of Raya Lucaria believed in knowledge so fiercely that their magic shaped the land around them, and even in ruin, the Academy's ambient glow lingers like a ghostly halo. The glintstones humming in the breeze produce a tone that feels faintly familiar, almost like the first notes of a lullaby that the world forgot before learning the rest of the melody. The entire region feels frozen between two breaths, like a memory waiting to exhale. Along the Altus Plateau, the air has a subtle golden tint even at night, caused by microscopic particles of grace drifting through the wind. The lore hints that grace itself is not simply a guiding light, but a physical substance, a remnant of the Erd tree's earliest roots. The way every leaf shimmers at certain angles supports the theory that the land is coated in a thin dust of divinity, particles small enough to pass unnoticed, but powerful enough to shift the atmosphere. When the sun sets behind the broken walls of Leyndell, that golden mist clings to stone surfaces, giving the feeling that the capital hasn't entirely accepted its destiny as a ruin. Even the ghosts walking its streets are brighter than those found anywhere else, almost reflective, as though touched directly by the Erd tree's inner glow. Far beneath Caelid, where the rot blossoms like a terrible garden, there exists a motif in the pattern of the scarlet bloom that repeats across multiple locations. The petals resemble distorted mimicries of the Erd tree's shape, as if rot is an inverted reflection of life. Some wanderers believe that the scarlet rot mimics the Erd tree not out of malice, but because it was once part of its design, a forgotten aspect of the natural cycle that the Golden Order attempted to suppress. This theory explains why the rot has a strangely elegant beauty when viewed from afar, forming spirals and branching patterns reminiscent of roots. Its decay expressed with the structure of growth, a reminder that the boundary between life and ruin is thinner in Elden Ring than in any other world. In Nokron, the Eternal City, every stone feels like a preserved memory. The architecture repeats with uncanny precision, not because the people lacked creativity, but because their society was built around the idea of permanence. The Nox believed that the stars should never be allowed to influence fate, so they crafted their city to be timeless, unchanging, locked in a perfect imitation of itself. That's why every plaza feels eerily symmetrical, why every alleyway curves at the same angle. Yet the soft hum beneath the city suggests that time still tried to move, even under the false sky. The stars painted above the city flicker occasionally, but not with real light. The flicker matches the rhythm of an ancient machine, forced to maintain a cosmos that isn't truly there. It gives the sky a mechanical heartbeat, quiet yet constant. The underground river regions feel impossibly vast, almost too massive to exist beneath the surface. This is because their ceilings are illusions created by long-dead sorceries, layers of enchantment that mimic the real night sky by capturing fragments of starlight from the surface world. The odd part is how perfectly the constellations match the sky above ground, even after centuries of decay. Some believe the magic still updates itself somehow, like an ancient mirror that refuses to forget what lies above. It makes these caverns feel like the world is dreaming beneath itself, imagining a universe under its own skin. In the frigid north, the consecrated snowfield hides remnants of structures that predate even the war between the Golden Order and the Fire Giants. Some ruins in the region contain stonework unlike anything else in the lands between, decorated with motifs never referenced by any known culture. When you pass through these structures, snow falls in unnatural spirals, drifting upward in certain corners as though gravity forgets its purpose. The strange winds in this region behave as if guided by something unseen, perhaps the last trace of an ancient civilization erased from the official history. The further you travel toward the frozen edges of the map, the more the world seems to lose its memory of physics, as though the land itself grows uncertain of what it's supposed to be. The halig tree, with its shimmering branches and quiet sorrow, feels like a living shrine to loss. Every leaf glows faintly, and if you stand still long enough, they emit a hum that fluctuates like a heartbeat. Some theorists believe the halig tree attempts to mimic the Erd tree's influence on life, but its power is gentler, more vulnerable, lacking the overwhelming divine force of the Golden Order. This difference gives the halig tree a feeling of compassion that the Erd tree never seemed capable of. Even the enemies in its regions move slowly, almost hesitantly, as if aware that they stand in a place built from desperation instead of triumph. It's a sanctuary shaped entirely by grief, blooming in defiance of the fate imposed upon its people. The Godskin apostles carry blades etched with spirals that match patterns found in ancient ruins scattered across multiple regions. These spirals resemble the mathematical curves used to model growth in biological organisms, suggesting that their weapons represent an ancient formula of life twisted into something unnatural. The eerie flames they summon, black yet luminous, behave unlike any other magic in the game. They flicker with the rhythm of breathing rather than the flow of wind. It suggests a connection between the Godskins and the original primordial forces that shaped the lands between, long before the Erd tree's light dominated the world. Their rituals feel like echoes of a forgotten era, one where gods were born not from grace, but from raw, untamed life. In the ruins of Farum Azula, the floating debris isn't entirely random. The stones follow looping paths through the air, drifting along invisible tracks like planets orbiting a shattered core. Observers believe these loops reflect the original structure of the city, mapping the pathways where buildings once stood proud in the sky. This means that even in collapse, Farum Azula maintains its ancient architecture, just rearranged by time into broken orbits. The way storms crackle around the ruins enhances the feeling that the city exists at the edge of time, pulled between stability and erasure. Lightning flashes illuminate fragments of towers frozen in mid-rotation, painting the air with brief glimpses of a civilization caught forever in the act of falling. In mountaintops of the giants, the ancient chains scattered across the region possess runes that glow faintly during blizzards. If viewed closely, these runes match the symbols carved into the bowls used in sacrifice rituals described in fire giant lore. Some theorists believe the chains weren't meant to bind the giants physically, but spiritually, anchoring their power to the land even after death. The lingering heat in certain parts of the snowfield feels like a pulse, a remnant heartbeat of fire imprisoned beneath the frost. Whenever a blizzard momentarily clears, the land seems to sigh, expelling steam from cracks as though exhaling centuries of suppressed fury. The Mimic Tear, a creature formed from reflections, has a unique detail many players miss. When it copies your form, it doesn't replicate the exact armor condition. Instead, it creates an idealized version, free of scratches or dents. This suggests that the Mimic Tear doesn't imitate physical reality, but rather imitates potential, the version of you that exists in your mind. It raises a subtle, chilling question. Does the mimic tear see you as you truly are, or as you believe yourself to be? When it fights you, the battle becomes a duel between who you are and who you think you are, a symbolic mirror fight encoded into the game's mechanics. The rotting tree spirits found throughout the world exhibit behaviors that mirror living trees struck by lightning. They twist, curl, and lean toward heat sources, reacting to fire even when dormant. Their bodies contain veins shaped like roots, and their explosive attacks mimic the rapid combustion of dried wood. This biological accuracy suggests the spirits aren't monsters forced into existence, but natural consequences of life twisted by divine mistakes. They embody the idea that in Elden Ring, corruption still follows rules, decay still follows structure, and even the most grotesque life forms obey some forgotten logic of nature. Across the lands between, small architectural patterns repeat in places that should have no connection. Staircases in Caelid that match those in Liurnia, door frames in Limgrave that mirror designs in Altus. Some believe this repetition hints at a unified ancient culture predating all current kingdoms, a civilization so old its influence lingers in the layout of ruins scattered across the world. Perhaps early humans built the first foundations of the lands between under the guidance of forces now erased from history. These echoes create a subtle continuity, making the world feel built upon shared roots. When wandering near the Erd Tree, some players report hearing soft choral tones carried in the wind. These tones don't appear in the soundtrack. They are environmental creatures, small insects known as graceflies, glowing motes of light that hum as they move. Their tones, when layered across the forest, form harmonic frequencies that resonate with the Erd Tree's glow. The insects act like tiny living instruments tuned to the divine light, creating a natural song that plays only when the world feels calm. It gives the impression that the Erd Tree's presence transforms the ecosystem around it, shaping not only life, but sound. In the volcanic regions of Mount Gelmir, obsidian deposits form in shapes resembling fossilized roots. Some believe these dark structures are the remnants of ancient trees burned during the earliest conflicts between gods. When touched, these deposits emit a faint warmth, suggesting they haven't fully cooled even after centuries. The lava rivers in the region follow unnatural paths, curving in spirals instead of flowing freely, hinting that the landscape is shaped not by geology, but by the lingering influence of forgotten divine battles. Even the simplest wildlife in Elden Ring holds secrets. The spectral deer in the underground regions behave with an unusual level of coordination, often turning their heads simultaneously in the direction of faint tremors. Though their forms are ghostly, they react to vibrations in the earth, suggesting they sense the movements of ancient creatures still sleeping beneath the surface. Their quiet presence feels comforting, like the dreams of a long-extinct species still wandering through the subconscious of the world. And everywhere, from broken battlements to sunken ruins, Elden Ring's world whispers the same soft truth. Even in decay, the world remembers how to dream. Stones shift like memories settling into place. Trees glow as if reliving moments of divine warmth, and forgotten cities echo with stories carried gently through starlit wind. Every region, every creature, every fragment of broken sky holds its own secret rhythm, inviting you to drift deeper, breathe slower, and wander quietly through a world that never truly sleeps. The lands between hold a quiet strangeness that hums beneath every ruin and glimmering stone, a sense that the world itself was stitched together from forgotten experiments and leftover miracles nobody fully understood. In the deepest layers of the Erd Tree, tucked beneath golden bark and shimmering sap veins, ancient runes flicker in patterns mirroring star charts found in towers across Liurnia. Some scholars believe these runes represent early attempts to bind cosmic energy into the roots themselves, turning the Erd Tree into a living observatory capable of reading destinies long before they were written. Even now, when the wind hits the tree at the right angle, the leaves whisper in tones that mimic subtle cosmic harmonies, as if the Erd Tree remembers the constellations that once shaped the world's fate. Travelers who rest beneath its shadow sometimes describe strange dreams of glowing rivers in the sky, dreams that feel too vivid to be imagination alone. In the volcanic scars around Mount Gelmir, the stones contain traces of crystallized fire, shimmering faintly when struck by sunlight. These deposits seem to pulse in rhythm with distant eruptions, suggesting they may be remnants of a primordial flame far older than the fire giants themselves. Some believe these crystals are echoes of a world before the lands between, a place where fire was a conscious force that shaped mountains the way sculptors shape clay. When adventurers break these stones, a low hum rings through the rock, almost like a memory of heat attempting to speak. There's something haunting in the idea that the land still remembers an age where flame had a will, and Gelmir's eruptions may be nothing more than the last dreams of a fire long since forgotten. Far beneath Stormvale Castle, the air grows strangely warm, carrying a faint metallic scent that doesn't quite match anything on the surface. Explorers who wander too deeply into the hidden chambers sometimes hear muted echoes of clashing blades, even when alone. These echoes don't match any recorded battle, leading some to believe the castle's foundations were built atop older arenas where warriors tested themselves in forgotten rites. The stone seems to hold the imprint of those conflicts, replaying them as quiet murmurs trapped in the grain of the walls. If you stand perfectly still, the vibrations feel almost like distant applause, as though the ghosts of ancient spectators still cheer for duels lost to memory. There is a peculiarity in how certain spirits in Limgrave fade when defeated, dissolving into motes of pale gold that drift upward rather than outward. This differs from the dissolving patterns seen in other regions, suggesting that Limgrave's spirits may be bound to the sky itself rather than the land. Some believe this region once served as a testing ground for early ascension rituals conducted before the Erd Tree's golden influence spread. These souls weren't rising to grace but returning to something older, perhaps an unseen celestial current hidden above the clouds. Even now, stargazers in Limgrave report that the night sky shines slightly clearer there, as though the heavens still recognize the souls returning home. The ever-present winds of Caelid behave unlike natural breezes, shifting direction abruptly as if reacting to unseen motion. When the scarlet rot pulses across the ground, the wind retreats for a moment before rushing back in with strange intensity. This has sparked theories that the rot produces subtle vibrations in the air, vibrations that resemble primordial whispers urging the land to recoil. In quiet moments, when the fog settles, these vibrations almost mimic music, an unsettling melody that twists between sorrow and hunger. Some travelers claim that if you listen closely, the rot sings of what the world once was and what it longs to become again, a broken lullaby carried by the wind across a land that refuses to die. Along the cliffs of Liurnia, scattered rune symbols line the rock face in patterns too deliberate to be erosion. These markings often sit just above waterline, hinting at ancient attempts to control tidal movements or even manipulate the lake's shape. When compared to sorcery glyphs used by Raya Lucaria, the symbols seem older, sharper, designed for something far more powerful than ordinary spellcasting. Some speculate that the lake once hid a great magical conduit, with these runes acting as anchors to stabilize the water around it. During storms, lightning sometimes strikes these symbols directly, illuminating them for a single breath before fading, a brief reminder that the lake has secrets far deeper than any academy textbook dares to reveal. At the edge of the consecrated snowfield, where blizzards warp sound into eerie echoes, faint silhouettes sometimes appear against the white horizon. These shapes flicker like distant figures walking across invisible plains, only to vanish when approached. Some theorists believe these are mirages caused by magical distortion in the snow, while others think they represent memories of those who traversed the region long before the Erdtree's guidance. A few even claim these apparitions belong to a time when the land was warmer, shadows of ancient wanderers frozen into the landscape like impressions pressed into time itself. Whatever they are, they move with a purposeful serenity that feels almost comforting, like guardians watching over travelers lost in the endless white. Deep in the catacombs scattered across the lands between, certain coffins contain carvings along the rim, intricate spirals resembling miniature galaxies. These spirals are found nowhere else in funerary art, leading scholars to believe the buried belong to a sect devoted to star worship. The spirals appear to glow faintly when touched by torchlight, though only for a heartbeat, as if responding to warmth. This odd reaction has been interpreted by some as proof that the carvings were created using star metal, a rare substance rumored to fall from the heavens during celestial storms. If that is true, then the dead resting in these coffins may have been laid to rest with fragments of the cosmos, guardians of secrets etched not in ink but in starlight. In the shadowed groves near Mistwood, the sound of howling wolves seems to follow a strange rhythm, almost conversational in tone. These howls often coincide with sudden gusts of wind, creating the illusion that the forest itself is answering. The mysterious tower hidden in the grove emits faint vibrations that match the wolves' calls, hinting that the land and its creatures may share a deeper connection than simple instinct. Some believe the howls are part of an ancient communication system, a harmonious exchange between the forest and its guardians that predates human settlement. At night, when the moon filters through the branches, the howling blends with the rustling leaves, forming a haunting melody that feels less like mourning and more like a conversation with the wild. A curious phenomenon can be witnessed near the shores of West Limgrave, where gentle waves occasionally glow pale blue without any known magical cause. This glow lingers for several seconds at a time before fading into the sea's darkness, almost like the water is breathing with hidden light. Some speculate that the waves contain faint traces of ancient grace that drifted from the Erdtree long ago, trapped within the water in quiet suspension. Others think the glow comes from dormant spirits resting beneath the waves, rising briefly to the surface as soft reminders that the sea, too, holds memories no one can fully uncover. Whatever the cause, the shimmering water brings a tender stillness to the coastline, like a lullaby whispered from the depths of the world. Night settles over the lands between in a way that feels more like memory than darkness, as if the world itself is remembering the moments before the shattering of its golden order. Somewhere beyond the quiet edges of Limgrave, the sky hums faintly with the remnants of ancient enchantments, and the stars flicker with the same soft hesitation they showed on the night when the first astrologers gazed upward and realized the heavens weren't as fixed as everyone believed. There's a quiet theory among scholars of Raya Lucaria that the stars themselves once had voices distant, melodic pulses that guided the first sorcerers before the Carian lineage claimed mastery over celestial magic. Even the faint shimmer left on the surface of Renala's moonlit lake feels like a residue of that ancient conversation, a delicate whisper frozen into water and starlight. Deep in the ruins of Farum Azula, the very wind seems to carry memories of dragons pacing along broken stones. Wanderers who stand near the swirling edges of the floating platforms sometimes feel a strange tug beneath their feet, almost like gravity trying to reach for something long lost. Some believe the collapsing architecture isn't drifting aimlessly, but falling in slow motion, suspended by temporal magic that refuses to let the city complete its final descent. Time bends so delicately there that even a thrown pebble seems to hesitate in the air, as though the ruins themselves are unwilling to let go of the imperial splendor they once knew. South of Caelid's Scarlet Swamp lies a quiet ridge where the air feels oddly warm, even when the wind is cold. Many Tarnished assume this heat comes from the land's rot, but the warmth actually traces back to old battlefield magic used during the first clash between Knights of the Halig Tree and invading forces of the Scarlet Rot. The ground absorbed so much magical residue that it continues to hum, centuries later, like an ember that refuses to die. If you walk through this place after sunset, the soil sometimes radiates a sleepy, rhythmic glow under your boots, softly pulsing like a tired heartbeat. The Albinaurics, wandering restlessly through villages and forests, often hum a song that most players never hear because it's so faint. It's a melody passed down through generations, said to echo a lullaby sung by the first Albinauric mothers to their fragile children. The tune is almost impossible to catch amid the noise of the world, a fragile thread of sound carried on breath rather than voice. Those who have leaned close enough say the melody resembles the slow, resigned tone of Lake of Rot's distant echoes, as if the Albinaurics instinctively remember the place where so many of their kind meet their quiet end. Beneath the very roots of the Erd Tree, where ancient sap hardened into golden stone, there are murals that predate the Golden Order entirely. These carvings depict creatures with wings of shimmering crystal, long before the age of dragons or the rise of Marika. Some believe these beings represent an earlier, forgotten pantheon deities who were erased when the Erd Tree began its slow ascent toward divinity. The carvings are almost impossible to see unless the light hits at just the right angle, glimmering faintly like dust carried through a dream. They stand as a quiet reminder that the world has rewritten itself many times, each age burying the one before it beneath layers of gold and silence. Even the humble spirit jellyfish carries secrets of a story older than most Tarnished know. In life, these creatures were once children who wandered too close to forbidden grave sites, their spirits wandering upward into the night instead of finding proper rest. Their gentle glow mirrors the starlight of Liurnia's highest cliffs, and some believe the jellyfish can still remember fragments of lullabies sung to them before they died. When two spirit jellyfish reunite, they sometimes float together in perfect circles as if playing quietly, recreating memories of a life they no longer possess. It makes the world feel both achingly sad and strangely tender, a reminder that even the smallest spirits carry echoes of the past. In Nokron, the Eternal City, gentle breezes drift past broken pillars and shattered domes in patterns that don't match natural wind currents. Some say this unnatural airflow is the result of ancient mechanisms still functioning beneath the surface ventilation systems, designed to draw starlight deeper into the city's heart. According to astrologer lore, the people of Nokron believed that stars weren't heavenly bodies, but living entities whose breath provided inspiration and wisdom. The wind that circles those ruins may be nothing more than geological quirk, yet it moves with purpose, almost like a guiding hand tracing familiar routes through streets that no longer exist. The Black Knife Assassins, silent in their movements and deadly in their precision, carve paths through the world that linger long after they pass. Earth where they have walked sometimes grows patches of darkened grass, as if the soil remembers the shadows they carried. These traces fade quickly, vanishing like ash, but they leave behind a faint chill that settles across the skin. Some scholars insist this chill isn't supernatural at all, but the residue of knives forged with death itself, blades capable of slicing through the life force of gods. Wherever such weapons tread, the world recoils slightly, trembling in memory of the night when they slew the first demigod. Many claim that the massive walking mausoleums scattered across the lands between are mindless constructs, but a softer theory imagines them as ancient protectors who wander out of longing rather than duty. Inside their hollow chambers lies a sound that resembles slow breathing, a rhythmic vibration shaped by centuries of footsteps and stone shifting against stone. If you stand still long enough, the tremble of their movements aligns with something that feels almost like sorrow. These titanic guardians may not possess thought, but they carry weight, the burden of ages spent carrying the remains of beings who shaped the world. Their bells toll like laments, echoes of long-lost songs from empires that crumbled before memory began. In Landell, the royal capital, the air carries tiny shimmering particles rarely noticed by passing tarnished. These flecks of golden light drift like dust motes but never settle. Some believe they are remnants of the greater will's earliest descent into the lands between, pieces of raw divinity that became trapped in the atmosphere when the Erd tree first bloomed. When you breathe deeply in the capital, you can almost feel a warmth in your chest, a soft tingling like sunlight soaked into your lungs. The sensation fades quickly, but it gives the impression that the city still hums with faint celestial presence, a ghost of the order that once lit its cobblestone streets with divine radiance. Far to the west, in the shadowed cliffs near the edge of the world, old caravans lie broken and silent, their wheels half buried in soil that refuses to grow anything. Legend says these merchants once traded with faraway realms beyond the lands between, realms now lost to time or sealed away beyond fog. Their wagons, decorated with faint patterns unlike any seen in the game, suggest influences from lands that may have been erased when the Golden Order consolidated power. The carvings depict birds with obsidian wings, creatures no longer found anywhere in the world. It raises the possibility that when the Erd tree rose to dominance, it not only shaped faith, but reshaped geography itself, bending the land to its will and leaving little trace of the cultures that preceded it. Somewhere deep within Stormvale Castle, beneath layers of roaring wind and crumbling stone, you can hear a faint metallic tapping that repeats at irregular intervals. It isn't a creature, nor a soldier, nor even the hum of the storm swirling overhead. Instead, this quiet tapping seems to come from old locks resetting themselves, remnants of enchantments Godric placed to keep certain doors sealed. As the castle decays, the magic hiccups, trying to repair itself, even though the mechanisms it once used have rusted into dust. This makes the fortress feel strangely alive, as though it's trying to heal, trapped in an endless loop of memory and malfunction. And within the quiet of the Weeping Peninsula, where the waves comb the cliffs with gentle persistence, lies a small shrine containing carvings of a woman whose flowing hair resembles strands of pure moonlight. Most tarnished pass it without notice, yet local lore claims she was one of the earliest clerics to attempt communion with the two fingers, long before the Golden Order codified its sacred rites. Legend says she vanished into the sea after receiving a message too overwhelming for mortal understanding. The sea-smooth stone left at her shrine feels almost warm, as if it still holds a trace of her devotion or a whisper of a prophecy never fulfilled. There is something haunting about the way certain ruins in the lands between continue to breathe with quiet traces of the people who lived there long before the shattering. When you wander through the empty corridors of Raya Lucaria's drowned outskirts, you'll occasionally notice the water shimmering in faint geometric patterns as though fragments of the Academy's once powerful sorceries still linger beneath the surface. Scholars believe these ripples behave almost like forgotten equations, repeating the same fluid shapes endlessly, long after their casters vanished. It creates the impression that sorcery itself remembers its creators, replaying their movements in soft echoes the world refuses to let go of. Even in the debris scattered along the lakebed, the faint glow of residual glintstone suggests that knowledge is not truly lost. It simply waits beneath the waves, dreaming gently of the hands that once shaped it. The ancient jars of Jarburg have always carried a strange duality. They appear whimsical at first glance, yet their quiet village feels almost sacred, like a relic preserved out of kindness rather than force. Some theorists believe that the jars are living archives, containers literally designed to hold memories as well as remains. The warmth they show toward gentle tarnished seems less like friendliness and more like recognition, an instinctive trust extended to those who tread lightly in a world shaped by violence. It is said that when a jar accepts a new friend, a faint hum passes through its ceramic shell, not from life as we know it, but from the echo of a spirit they've chosen to carry. In this sense, Jarburg becomes less a village and more a sanctuary of quiet remembrance, where the past lives on in clay bodies that refuse to let love disappear. High atop the cliffs of the Altus Plateau, the wind carries a unique resonance when it sweeps across certain broken statues. Some travelers swear they hear faint singing carried through these currents, almost like the remnants of a hymn sung during the golden age of the Erd Tree. The tune shifts, depending on the weather. During clear mornings, the wind hums a hopeful melody, while storms twist the notes into something mournful. This phenomenon might be due to the statue's hollows acting like natural flutes, but others insist the wind carries more than sound, perhaps spiritual resonance, from an era when the Golden Order was still pure and faith shaped the land as tangibly as stone. Standing in those places, it feels as if the air itself remembers what it once meant to be hopeful. The Albinorics hold secrets deeper than their artificial birthplaces ever reveal. Their silver blood seems to shimmer strangely in the light of the moon, and some believe this glow is not just an accident of their creation, but a kind of inheritance from the lost lunar dynasty. Their connection to the moon is more emotional than biological, tied to a longing they cannot fully articulate. When Albinorics gather near water, their reflections appear slightly delayed, creating the eerie impression that their mirrored selves linger in contemplation, hesitant to leave. This small delay has led to the idea that they exist slightly out of sync with the world, caught between the intentions of their makers and the quiet yearning of their own souls. In the shadowed depths of Deeproot, tangled roots sometimes pulse with faint patterns of gold, glowing like veins beneath ancient bark. These pulses occur at irregular intervals, almost like a heartbeat struggling to remember its rhythm. Some theorists think these lights represent the fading life force of the primordial Erd Tree, flickering with memories of gods who rose and fell long before the current age. The roots twist, like grasping fingers frozen mid-reach, hinting that the Erd Tree once extended far beyond the lands it now dominates. When you stand among the stillness and watch those dim glimmers, it feels like witnessing an apology from an ancient being that lost itself beneath centuries of decay and ambition. The spectral knights who patrol the royal ruins of Caria seem to move with unnatural precision, their footsteps aligned so perfectly that they almost form a rhythm. This rhythm, when listened to carefully, mirrors the cadence of an old Carian lullaby sung to children who showed potential for sorcery. The presence of this pattern raises the idea that these spectral forms are echoes of guardians who were once gentle protectors, transformed into eternal sentinels by grief and duty. Their armor glows faintly beneath moonlight, not because of enchantment, but because of the memories embedded in their blades, memories sharp enough to carve meaning into the empty air they patrol forever. The falling star beasts, with their strange celestial origins, leave behind faint trails of light that scientists believe are fragments of cosmic metal shedding as they move. These trails vanish quickly, as though the world repurposes the material instantly, absorbing it like nourishment. Some believe the earth of the lands between hungers for stars, drinking their remnants to fuel the strange growth patterns seen in regions marked by crater scars. Stones near such sites hum when touched, vibrating as if eager to return to the sky. It paints a picture of a world yearning upward, a land that dreams of ascension even as gravity holds it close. The ever-present fog that drifts near ancient Evergowls contains shimmering particles that behave almost like dying fireflies. These flickers are not alive, but are fragments of magic attempting to stabilize the imprisoned spirits within. When a prisoner grows restless, the fog darkens for a moment before returning to its normal shimmer, like a tired sigh from a soul trying to escape its eternal cage. This subtle change has caused some researchers to speculate that Evergales themselves are semi-sentient, adapting their strength based on the emotions of those trapped inside. In this way, imprisonment becomes a dialogue, silent but continuous, between the bound and the boundary. Deep within Caelid's wasteland, where the scarlet rot blooms like an unnatural orchard, some of the diseased trees twist their branches toward the horizon as though searching for a sun they can no longer feel. Their growth patterns mimic gestures of longing, reaching outward instead of upward. This has led to the idea that the rot carries a memory of its origin, a sorrow inherited from the goddess who birthed it. Even the rotten flowers sway in rhythm with unseen tides, whispering secrets of a tragedy that festers beneath their petals. Standing among them, one feels a strange empathy, like the land is not sick, but grieving endlessly. At night atop Stormvale Castle, the wind causes the tattered banners to flutter in a pattern that resembles the beat of wings. This is no accident. The weave of the cloth was designed to honor ancient stormbirds, legendary creatures once believed to carry the thunder of the old Storm Lord. When the fabric shifts just right, it almost looks as if these birds are soaring through the air again, their silhouettes rising and falling like memories brought to life. For a brief moment, past and present overlap, and the castle becomes a nest of history waiting to be rediscovered. And beneath Lanedel's golden ruin, where roots choke old pathways and dust hangs in the quiet gloom, the faint smell of incense lingers despite centuries of abandonment. Some believe the scent is not residue, but a regenerative trait of the ancient capital, an aroma woven into the walls during rituals of devotion. The fragrance grows stronger near sealed doors, hinting that behind them lie chambers untouched by decay, holding secrets the city still refuses to reveal. It feels as though Landel breathes softly in its slumber, dreaming of its former glory and the countless hymns once sung beneath its vaulted ceilings. In the quiet spaces between storms in the lands between, there are moments where the world seems to pause, as if remembering something lost to time. During these pauses, faint shimmering effects ripple across certain stones and cliff faces, almost like echoes of the past trying to surface. Some believe these tiny flickers are leftover traces of sorceries performed by ancient astrologers. Their spells so powerful they left burn marks, not on the stone, but in reality itself. The effect fades whenever the wind returns, as though the world closes its eyes again, unwilling to recall what it once witnessed. There is an unusual detail hidden deep in the animation of the spectral steed whistle, where the blue glow that appears in the palm of the tarnished contains tiny fragments that drift upward rather than downward. When slowed, these fragments resemble small runes, like miniature pieces of the Elden Ring carried on the wind. Lore scholars have long wondered if Torrent responds not to a whistle, but to the call of those drifting runes, recognizing them as echoes of grace that still cling stubbornly to the tarnished soul. If true, Torrent's arrival isn't obedience, but reunion, a creature bound not by sound but by destiny. Some travelers in the lands between swear they've seen strange patterns in the root systems of the minor Erd trees. When rain falls softly at dusk, shadows sometimes intertwine beneath the roots in shapes resembling woven halos or spirals that disappear the moment torchlight draws near. These spirals appear in several locations where ancient priests once gathered, as though the land itself remembers their rituals and repeats them during moments of stillness. Such subtle repetitions feel like the world humming a forgotten hymn, allowing memories to rise only when no one is watching. A curious mystery involving the Albinaurics lies in how their voices echo when heard in underground caverns. Their cries reverberate with a hollow, almost metallic undertone, as though their voices bounce off layers of something beneath the stone. Explorers who followed these echoes claim that the reverberations form faint harmonic tones, almost musical in nature. Some theorize that the Albinaurics' artificial birth tied them not only to magic, but to the vibrations left behind by the imprisoned outer beings lurking deep beneath the lands between. Their voices might simply be resonating against powers they were never meant to sense. There are countless paintings scattered across the world, and many tarnished think of them as simple side objectives, but the shadows in these paintings hold secrets the eyes often miss. When viewed at certain times of day, or when illuminated by lightning storms, the shadows shift subtly, revealing hints of places that no longer exist. Some shadows even appear inverted, pointing toward directions that contradict the scene entirely, suggesting that the painter may have seen the world at a moment when its laws were not yet stable, or perhaps glimpsed a memory from another age entirely. These paintings become windows not to landscapes, but to moments suspended outside the normal flow of time. Far below the surface, in the labyrinthine waterways of Landell, there are faint traces of luminescent algae glowing in intricate patterns along the stone. These patterns only appear when the moon passes a certain position in the sky, forming shapes resembling the branches of the Erd tree. This strange phenomenon suggests that even deep underground, life attempts to echo the form of divinity in whatever way it can. The glow lasts only a few heartbeats, but during those fleeting seconds, the depths of the capital feel strangely alive, like a subterranean reflection of lost holiness. In the snowfields near Ordina, the wind sometimes carries whispers that sound almost human, soft sighs threaded into the storm. These whispers fade the moment anyone draws closer, leaving nothing but swirling frost in their place. Some believe these murmurs belong to spirits displaced by the ever-shifting boundaries between realms, caught between existence and erasure by the same magic that froze Ordina's torchbearers in time. The idea that voices can linger in the wind, speaking gently despite their lost forms, adds a strange softness to a region otherwise filled with cold and sorrow. The giants of the mountaintops possess carvings on their armor that many assume are decorative, but closer examination reveals tiny chiseled lines that resemble early Proto-Elden script. These lines sometimes align into short phrases when the armor catches sunlight at certain angles, forming messages that scholars believe are prayers for release. The giant's suffering under the weight of the flame of ruin becomes even more tragic when one realizes their armor hides their final unanswered wishes, etched in places where only the sky would read them. The crumbling ruins in Limgrave hold a strange architectural quirk where certain walls echo differently depending on the direction a person walks. This effect doesn't occur in other regions. Some theorists believe these ruins once belonged to a monastery that practiced a form of sound-based divination where echoes were used to interpret divine will. As erosion took its toll, only fragments of the structure's original acoustic properties remain, but the inconsistent echoes still persist, creating a ghost of a forgotten faith carried through stone long after its worshippers were dust. In the deep underground riverways, where false stars glimmer in eternal twilight, certain waterfalls obscure faint glowing symbols in the mist. These symbols match fragments found in ancient ruins tied to the Nox, suggesting that their civilization encoded messages into water vapor as a form of secret communication. Because the symbols only appear when the water flow hits a perfect pressure point, modern eyes rarely glimpse them, and even when they do, the shapes fade too quickly to understand. The river seems to breathe ancient secrets, revealing them only in brief flashes, like memories the world hesitates to share. There is an overlooked detail hidden within certain crystalline structures. When struck, the crystal shells vibrate in frequencies that cause nearby crystals to emit faint tones in response. This suggests that the crystallians maintain an internal resonance that acts as communication, linking individuals through harmonic pulses. It paints a picture of a society not built on language, but on vibration, a civilization that once communicated through the quiet singing of bodies shaped by magic. Even now, their forms hum softly in silence, carrying a communal voice that rings faintly through forgotten caverns. On stormy nights in Caelid, where the sky glows scarlet, there are fleeting moments where the silhouettes of birds appear distorted not by magic,